Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker. No, not a ghost story, though there might be whispers of forgotten fears. Tonight, we journey back to a time when a simple, vibrant fruit was steeped in suspicion, when its very color seemed to scream danger, and when a legend of poison clung to its skin like a persistent shadow. So, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, rhythmic hum, letting the gentle breeze caress your skin like a quiet secret. Feel the subtle shift in the air, allowing your mind to drift, unburdened. And let's ease into tonight's journey together, a slow unfolding of forgotten days. Take a moment to settle in, to find that perfect, comfortable spot where the world outside can fade, and only the sound of my voice remains. And let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from, and what time it is for you. Maybe take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure, just a gentle invitation. Tonight, we're diving into the quiet, patient vindication of a plant that waited centuries to be truly seen, truly understood. A story about prejudice, about waiting, and about a slow, colorful revolution that happened. Not with shouts, but with time, with patience, and with the simple, unwavering presence of a fruit that refused to be ignored. We're talking about the tomato, but not the tomato you know. Not yet. We're going back, far back, to its very beginning. Imagine, if you will, the world as it was, long before clocks ticked the frantic pace of our modern lives, long before concrete covered the ancient earth, long before the whisper of steel and glass replaced the rustle of leaves. Our journey begins in a landscape painted with ancient greens and sun-baked browns, a world where the air hangs heavy and sweet with the scent of fertile soil, tropical rain, and the wild, untamed breath of life itself. We drift now, gently, across the vast, blue expanse of the Pacific, or perhaps more accurately, we settle our thoughts upon the rugged western slopes of the mighty Andes Mountains, where the earth reaches dramatically for the sky. Or perhaps our minds carry us further north, a little closer to the vibrant, beating heart of what would one day be known as Mesoamerica. Here, the sun is not merely a source of light, it is a profound life, giving presence, an almost palpable warmth that saturates the very air, encouraging every seed to burst forth with exuberant growth. Picture the climate, warm consistently, deeply warm. Not the fleeting warmth of a summer afternoon, but a pervasive, almost eternal embrace. There is a humidity here, a soft, heavy moisture that clings to the air, kissing the leaves, condensing into dewdrops that sparkle like scattered jewels at dawn. It is a humidity that breathes life into everything, fostering an environment of lush, verdant abundance. Rainfall comes, often in sudden, generous downpours, washing the earth clean, deepening the greens, and leaving behind that incomparable, earthy scent of petrichor, the exquisite perfume of rain on dry soil. This is a land of rich, dark earth, nourished by ancient volcanic activity, teeming with nutrients. It is a canvas where nature paints with broad, generous strokes, creating a tapestry of life that is both resilient and delicate. And within this verdant, sun-drenched haven, we seek a subtle, often overlooked presence. Look closely now, let your eyes soften, blurring the rigid lines of the present, allowing them to perceive the wild, untamed beauty of what once was. Here, you'll find them, the wild tomato vines. They are not the neat, orderly rows of a modern garden staked and pruned for optimal yield. No, these are anarchic entities, beautiful in their disarray. They sprawl, they creep, they intertwine, forming intricate, living labyrinths along the ground. Their tendrils, delicate yet determined, reach out seeking purchase, latching onto anything they can find tundi. The rough bark of a fallen log, the sturdy stem of a neighboring plant, or simply other segments of their own sprawling form. Their leaves, a muted, dusty green, are somewhat fuzzy to the touch, releasing a faint, almost spicy aroma when brushed thoroughly, a scent that even then was distinctly their own, marking them as unique amidst the jungle's vast botanical symphony. They are quiet, these vines. They do not shout for attention, they do not demand. They simply are fired. They exist in a state of tranquil persistence, drawing sustenance from the generous earth, drinking in the endless golden sunlight. And nestled within these sprawling green networks, almost shyly concealed by the abundant foliage, you begin to discern them, the fruits, small, incredibly small compared to the plump, fist-sized specimens we effortlessly pluck from supermarket shelves today. Think of a wild berry, perhaps, a marble, a tiny, luminous bead, and their colors, not the uniform, assertive crimson that has become synonymous with the tomato. No, these are a palette of subtle variations. Many are a gentle, pale yellow, the color of morning light filtering through dense leaves. Others lean towards a soft, unassuming green, blending almost perfectly with their leafy surroundings, requiring a keen eye to spot. Some might be a faint, blushing orange, hinting at the potential for deeper hues, but still far from the fiery reds of their descendants. Their shapes are just as varied, just as imperfectly perfect. Some are perfectly round, little spheres waiting to burst. Others are slightly ovoid, like tiny elongated jewels. A few might even possess a faint lobed quality, a slight indentation or bump that speaks of their wild, untamed lineage. Each one is a miniature world, a quiet testament to the slow, patient artistry of nature. They hang there, or rest softly upon the cool earth, glistening slightly with dew or recent rain, waiting for whatever creature might discover them, or perhaps simply waiting to ripen, fall, and return their seeds to the earth, continuing their ancient, unnoticed cycle. This is their kingdom, this verdant, humid cradle. This is where the story, so long hidden, truly begins. And for centuries, perhaps millennia, they simply grew, undisturbed, a silent, humble offering from the earth, waiting for their moment in the sun, waiting for a name. And so, as the wild vines continued their quiet, persistent dance across the fertile lands, a new character began to emerge in our unfolding story, humanity. Specifically, the acute, observant minds of the Mesoamerican peoples, a civilization deeply attuned to the rhythms of their environment, understanding the subtle languages of plants and animals. Among these, the Aztec people stand prominently, their culture rich with intricate knowledge, their lives intricately woven with the bounty of the earth. It was they, with their profound connection to the land, who first recognized something significant in these small, unassuming fruits. They didn't see a threat or a curiosity for a botanical garden. They saw sustenance, they saw potential, and they bestowed upon this plant its first recorded identity, a name that echoed through the misty valleys and sun-drenched fields of their empire. They called it tomato. Roll the word gently on your tongue, for tomato. It carries a certain earthiness, a sound that feels rooted, unpretentious, straightforward. It wasn't a grand, poetic title reserved for rare and magnificent blossoms. It wasn't shrouded in mysticism or fear, as future names would be. No, tomato was a name that spoke of everyday utility, of a quiet presence in the garden and on the communal eating mat. It was a name that perfectly captured its humble origins, its unadorned truth. This wasn't a plant that demanded attention. It simply was and was recognized for what it offered. Imagine an Aztec farmer, perhaps, walking through a small patch of cultivated land near their dwelling, bending down to pluck one of these small, ripe spheres. Or a child learning the names of the plants, pointing to the laden vine and confidently uttering, "Tomato." The word itself is a testament to an initial acceptance, a quiet integration into the fabric of daily life. What did they do with this tomato? Their use was as uncomplicated as its name. It was, first and foremost, food, a simple, direct source of nourishment. It might have been plucked directly from the vine and eaten raw. It's juicy, slightly tart flesh offering a refreshing burst in the tropical heat. Think of it as a small, natural snack, a welcome addition to a diet primarily composed of maize, beans, and squash. But its utility extended beyond merely being eaten whole. It was also a fundamental component of their culinary practices, albeit in a remarkably simple form. It served as a basic seasoning, a foundational flavor. Imagine the rhythmic sound of a sumatate, the traditional grinding stone, as a handful of these tomato were crushed, releasing their liquid and pulp into a rudimentary paste. This paste would then be incorporated into their various preparations. Perhaps it found its way into a simple stew, a pottage of sorts, simmering over a low fire, adding a subtle tang and a depth of flavor that elevated the humble ingredients. Or perhaps it was mixed with chilies, ground together to create one of the earliest forms of salsa, a vibrant, spicy accompaniment to their staple foods. The brilliance of the tomato in this context was its versatility and its ability to enhance without overpowering. It wasn't the star of the dish, not in the way it commands attention in a modern Italian pasta sauce. No, here it was more of a quiet collaborator, a team player in the symphony of flavors, providing a crucial acidic counterpoint, a juicy freshness that brightened everything it touched. There was no complex culinary theory surrounding it, no elaborate recipes passed down through generations that required intricate preparations of tomato. Its role was pragmatic, almost instinctive. It was simply there, readily available, generously provided by the earth, and understood to be a wholesome, edible component of their diet. This perception is critical. At this early stage of its interaction with humanity, the tomato harbored no secrets, no perceived dangers. It was accepted, trusted, and utilized without question. The simplicity embedded in its name, in its everyday application, speaks volumes about a period of innocence, a time before fear and misunderstanding would cast long, forbidding shadows over its future. This was the tomato, in its most authentic, unburdened state, a quiet gift from the fertile lands of Mesoamerica, a humble yet essential thread woven into the tapestry of ancient lives, waiting for the tumultuous journey across oceans and cultures that would, for a time, transform its simple name into a harbinger of dread. As the tomato humbly continued its life cycle, ripening and returning to the earth in the sun, drenched fields of Mesoamerica, its physical form was also undergoing a slow, almost imperceptible transformation under the gentle hand of early human intervention. While still far from the robust, red spheres we recognize today, the initial steps of domestication had begun to shape these wild fruits, coaxing them into slightly more manageable and appealing forms. This was not a scientific endeavor in the modern sense, but rather an intuitive process of observation and selection by the indigenous peoples, who, year after year, would save seeds from the vines that produced the most desirable fruits, perhaps those that were a little bigger, a little sweeter, or simply more plentiful. Let's focus now on these early domesticated tomatoes, the direct descendants of the sprawling wild vines. Visually, they remained quite diminutive. Picture them small, still very much on the smaller side. If you were to hold one in your palm, it might barely fill the hollow, perhaps the size of a large berry or a plump grape. Many were indeed reminiscent of what we now call culinary tomatoes, compact and perfectly bite-sized. There was an appealing plumpness to them, a taut skin stretched smoothly over their juicy interior, hinting at the refreshing burst of flavor contained within. They weren't misshapen or irregular, rather, they possessed a simple, almost elegant spherical or slightly ovoid form, a testament to nature's inherent geometry. But it is their color that offers one of the most striking contrasts to our modern expectations. Cast aside the image of a vibrant, fiery red. That would come much, much later. These ancient domesticated tomatoes wore a far more understated palette. Many were a delicate, soft yellow. Imagine the color of pale sunshine, or the tender flesh of a perfectly ripe lemon. This yellow wasn't aggressive, it was gentle, almost translucent, hinting at a sweetness that might not yet be fully developed. Other prevalent shades included various greens. Not the deep emerald green of an unripe fruit, but lighter, almost apple greens, sometimes with a faint, almost imperceptible blush of yellow or orange hinting at the warmth of the sun that had nourished them. Some might have been an almost creamy, pale orange, a subtle hue that blended harmoniously with the greens and yellows, creating a natural camouflage among the foliage. These were not the colors of passion or drama, they were the colors of quiet growth, of natural progression of the earth itself. They radiated a calm, earthy presence, far from the bold statement their descendants would later make on the world's dinner plates. Now, let's consider their taste. What would it have been like, that first bite into a tomatal, plucked from an Aztec field? The predominant characteristic would have been its sourness, a distinct, clear tang that would awaken the palate. This wasn't an unpleasant sourness, but rather a vibrant natural acidity, a sharp counterpoint to the often starchy or earthy flavors of other staple foods. It would have offered a refreshing cut through richer dishes, invigorating the taste buds. But this sourness was also balanced by a compelling juiciness. Imagine the slight resistance of the skin as your teeth broke through it, followed by a sudden gush of liquid, filling the mouth with a bright, clean flavor. The pulp would be soft, yielding, dissolving on the tongue, leaving behind that lingering, characteristic tang. There would have been a hint of sweetness too, a subtle, underlying counterpoint to the acidity, a testament to the fruit's ripeness and the generous sun it had absorbed. This sweetness, however, was not the pronounced, almost sugary sweetness of many modern tomato varieties, which have been cultivated for that specific trait. No, here it was more of a whispered suggestion, a gentle echo that softened the sharp edges of the sourness, creating a complex and intriguing flavor profile that would have been highly valued in a culinary landscape, often dominated by more robust, less nuanced tastes. The description of these ancient fruits is intentionally calm, almost observational. There is no urgency, no judgment, merely a simple acknowledgement of their physical characteristics and their inherent flavors. They were what they were, small, yellow or green, sour, and undeniably juicy. They were a testament to the quiet power of nature and the earliest forms of human agriculture, patiently unfolding their potential. This initial form, this humble palette of muted colors and straightforward flavors, represented the tomato in its nascent stage as a cultivated food. It was a foundation, a starting point. It held within its small, juicy chambers the genetic blueprint for all the magnificent, diverse varieties that would follow. But before that explosion of variety, before the ubiquitous reds and the cultivated sweetness, this little fruit, in its unassuming yellow and green, had a long, arduous journey ahead. A journey that would challenge its very identity and redefine its place in the human story. The great blue vastness of the Atlantic stretched before them, a world of shifting currents and unseen depths, a formidable barrier between the familiar and the utterly unknown. It was across this restless, churning expanse that the silent journey began, not for gold or glory, but for a cluster of seeds, perhaps a few young, tender plants, carefully nestled in the dim confines of a Spanish galleon. They were among the most unlikely of passengers, these unassuming botanical specimens, yet their voyage would prove to be as transformative, in its own quiet way, as any treasure-laden chest or map of newly discovered lands. Imagine the ship itself, a wooden behemoth against the endless sky, its sails billowing like enormous sun-bleached clouds. The hull groaned and creaked with every heave of the ocean, a symphony of stressed timber and taut ropes. Below deck, where the sun's direct light rarely penetrated, the air hung thick with the mingled scents of tar, damp wood, dried provisions, and the ever-present cloying sweetness of stale human breath. It was a world of perpetual twilight, illuminated only by the flickering dance of oil lamps or the occasional shaft of light piercing down from a distant hatch. In this swaying, confined universe, among sacks of maize, barrels of salted meat, and crates filled with the exotic wonders of the New World, lay the future of a humble fruit. The journey was not swift. Weeks bled into months, each day a monotonous rhythm of waves against the hull, the cries of gulls, and the incessant creaking that became the ship's very pulse. For the seeds, tucked away in small, labeled pouches, or for the young plants, perhaps potted in meager soil within a protective wooden box, it was a time of utter darkness, punctuated only by the rough hands of a sailor or a botanist checking their precious cargo. They felt the constant, dizzying lurch and roll of the vessel, the rise and fall that mimicked a slow, endless breath. They knew the damp chill of the cargo hold, a persistent moisture that seeped into every fiber, every crack. And they knew the distant rumble of human voices, the clatter of footsteps, the muted thud of crates being shifted phoebe, all the strange alien sounds of a world vastly different from the sun-drenched, humming fields of their origin. These were the silent travelers, much like the potato that preceded them, or the corn, the tobacco, the cacao bean soothe. all destined to reshape the palates and economies of distant lands. They possessed no voice to express their mute resignation, no eyes to witness the boundless expanse of ocean. Their existence was purely passive, a delicate biological cargo entrusted to the whims of man and sea. Each surge of the waves was a reminder of their precarious existence, each gust of wind a whisper of the immense distance being covered. The salt spray occasionally finding its way into the lower decks left a fine, gritty residue on everything, a constant taste of the sea. The men who carried them were a breed apart, Thive and Hardy, often desperate, driven by a thirst for wealth, knowledge, or simply survival. Their hands, calloused and rough from rope and toil, were nonetheless capable of surprising gentleness when handling the fragile specimens that promised future riches or scientific renown. They spoke in hushed tones of new spices, of exotic birds, of shimmering gold, but perhaps less frequently of these small green shoots that were merely food to Yuans. Yet, unknowingly, they cradled the very essence of future culinary revolutions in their crude wooden boxes and canvas bags. The air around the plants was a complex tapestry of scents, the earthy musk of the soil clinging to their roots, the faint, green aroma of their own leaves, mixed with the pervasive smell of humanity's frizzy sweat, unwashed clothing, the sharp tang of vinegar used to clean, and the ever-present underlying scent of fear and hope. Time became a fluid concept in the hold, measured not by clocks, but by the dwindling water supplies, the weakening rations, and the increasing longing for solid ground. The tomato, oblivious to these human anxieties, simply endured its dormant life force, waiting for the moment it would once again taste the kiss of the sun. It was a testament to nature's resilience, that such a delicate organism could withstand such an arduous, unnatural passage, crossing an entire ocean cocooned in darkness and motion, patiently carrying within its tiny cells the memory of its wild, vibrant past and the promise of a colorful future. And as the distant shores of Europe slowly began to materialize on the horizon, these silent travelers, these green ambassadors of the New World, were nearing the culmination of their first great adventure, entirely unaware of the long, cautious welcome that awaited them. When the crates and bundles, having endured the long, rocking passage across the Atlantic, were finally unloaded onto the docks of bustling European ports, perhaps Seville or Naples or Lisbon, the tomato plant arrived not with fanfare, but as a botanical curiosity, nestled among a myriad of other strange and wondrous specimens from the newly discovered continents. The bustling cacophony of the docks, the shouts of porters, the creak of pulleys, the salty tang of the sea air, mingling with the earthy smell of fresh produce and the acrid smoke of countless chimneys, would have been an overwhelming symphony for any sentient creature. For the tomato, however, it was merely the end of one long darkness and the beginning of another, albeit one filtered through the carefully constructed order of European gardens. Unlike the wild, untamed exuberance of its Mesoamerican birthplace, where its vines sprawled freely over the sun, baked earth, mingling with other spontaneous life, its new home was often one of meticulously manicured beauty. It found itself transplanted into the hallowed grounds of botanical gardens, those bastions of scientific inquiry and aristocratic display, or within the walled, geometrically precise gardens of noble estates. These were places of careful cultivation, where every plant had its assigned spot, where beds were neatly edged, paths gravely trodden, and the very air seemed to hum with a quiet, scholarly dignity. Imagine such a garden in 16th century Italy. High, sun-warmed stone walls provided a serene enclosure, shielding the precious specimens within from the prying eyes of the uninitiated. Gravel paths crunched softly underfoot, winding their way between meticulously labeled beds. Fountains murmured gentle melodies, their cool waters glistening under the Mediterranean sun. The air was rich with the scent of familiar European flora roses, lavender, rosemary, thyme soothing, balm to the senses. And then, among these familiar sights and smells, stood the newcomer, the tomato plant. Its leaves, a vibrant, almost audacious green, were unlike many of the more subdued shades found in European gardens. Its small, often yellow or greenish, yellow fruits, hanging in clusters, caught the light with an unfamiliar luster. To the eye of a European gardener, accustomed to the delicate hues of berries or the rustic colors of root vegetables, the tomato must have presented a peculiar, almost alien beauty. It was a novelty, a talking point, an exotic import to be admired for its appearance alone. The hands that tended these plants were no longer the rough, calloused hands of indigenous farmers, but those of dedicated botanists, scholars, or the meticulous staff of aristocratic households. They worked with a blend of scientific curiosity and cautious reverence, carefully observing the plant's growth, its flowering, its fruiting. They noted its vigor, its resilience, its striking appearance. But their observations were tinged with an underlying wariness, a hesitation born from unfamiliarity. The tomato was admired, yes, perhaps even celebrated for its exotic provenance, a tangible link to the distant, mysterious lands across the sea. It was a symbol of expanding empires, of new knowledge, of the wealth and power that could bring such distant wonders to European soil. But this admiration was largely superficial, an aesthetic appreciation rather than a culinary one. The plant was a living exhibit, an object of scientific scrutiny, its vibrant fruits a splash of color against the staid greens and browns of the garden. The local populace, if they caught a glimpse of these strange new plants, would have reacted with a mix of wonder and suspicion. Rumors, like seeds scattered on the wind, would have followed its arrival. Tales of its distant, wild origins, perhaps embellished with fanciful details, would have circulated through marketplaces and taverns. But predominantly there was caution. The plant was the unknown, and in a world where food was a matter of life and death, where seasons dictated survival, the unknown was to be approached with extreme prudence. For centuries, this would be the tomato's quiet role in Europe. It grew, it flowered, it bore fruit, entirely unaware of the profound impact it was destined to have. It was content to be a splash of color, a botanical oddity, a silent witness to the changing seasons within the ordered confines of its garden prison. The sun warmed its leaves, the rain quenched its thirst, and the occasional human hand would prune it, or gather its fruit, not for the kitchen, but for a curiosity cabinet, or perhaps a formal dinner table where it would sit as a colorful centerpiece, admired but untouched, a beautiful, enigmatic stranger. Its initial welcome was one of silent observation, a cautious gaze, a polite but firm distance. It was the calm before the storm, the long, quiet prelude to a culinary revolution that no one yet foresaw or even dared to imagine. The primary reason for this deep-seated European apprehension towards the alluring, crimson fruits of the tomato plant was rooted not in malicious rumor, but in the cold, hard facts of botanical classification as understood in the 16th and 17th centuries. The tomato, with its humble flowers and often vigorous growth, belonged to the botanical family Solanaceae, a group more commonly known and more feared as the nightshades. This seemingly innocuous scientific label, in the context of the time, carried with it a chilling resonance, a shadowy association that cast a long, dark pall over the innocent newcomer. Imagine the common European understanding of plants. For centuries, knowledge of the natural world was intimately tied to survival, to medicine, and often to superstition. Certain plants were known healers, others provided sustenance, and a terrifying few were recognized as bringers of madness, agony, and death. Among these deadly few, the nightshades stood out. The name itself, nightshade, evokes a sense of creeping dread, of things that bloom under cover of darkness, harboring sinister secrets. The most notorious members of this family were household names, whispered with caution and fear: deadly nightshade, or belladonna. Atropa belladonna, with its deceptively beautiful purple, black berries that could kill with just a few swallowed, Mandragora officinarum, whose eerie human-shaped roots were steeped in myth and folklore, believed to shriek when pulled from the earth, and to possess powerful, often lethal, narcotic properties. Henbon Hyoscyamus niger, another close relative, was known for its hallucinogenic and poisonous effects. These were not obscure plants. They were deeply embedded in the European consciousness, figures of dread and warning. When botanists, with their rudimentary but developing understanding of plant morphology, began to examine the tomato, they saw undeniable family resemblances. The structure of its flowers, the shape of its leaves, the way its fruits developed time be, all bore a striking, unsettling similarity to these infamous, toxic kin. It was an uncanny valley of botany. Something looked familiar yet fundamentally dangerous. The visual cues were too strong to ignore. The green stems, the somewhat coarse leaves, the subtle odor fouling, all could be mistaken for the telltale signs of a plant known to bring ill. The sensory experience of encountering these known poisonous nightshades was often terrifying. The deep, almost unnatural sheen of a belladonna berry, hinting at its potent toxicity. The gnarled, twisted roots of mandrake, evoking images of suffering. The heavy, narcotic scent of henbane. These were not plants to be casually touched, let alone ingested. Their very presence instilled caution. So, when the tomato arrived, displaying these familial traits, it immediately inherited a portion of that collective fear. The scientists and gardeners of the era, observing the tomato's growth, would have noticed its vines, its indeterminate sprawling habit, its leaves, which could easily be confused with those of other, more sinister nightshades. There was no clear, unambiguous visual marker to definitively separate it from its deadly cousins for the untrained eye, or even for the developing botanical science of the time. The red or yellow fruits, so inviting to modern palates, might have even been seen as a further deception, a wolf in sheep's clothing of the plant world, luring the unwary. This botanical identity was not a matter of abstract classification. It was a matter of perceived life and death. If it looked like a nightshade and it grew like a nightshade, then surely it must purdy by, A nightshade, a plant to be treated with the utmost suspicion, if not outright dread. The caution was understandable, even logical, given the limited knowledge of the time. Without modern chemical analysis to identify specific compounds like solanine, which is present in varying degrees in all nightshades, and is indeed toxic in large quantities. Though typically at much lower levels in ripe tomatoes, the physical resemblance was the only guide. So, the tomato plant was assigned its place, not among the revered grains or the beloved herbs, but in a category shadowed by poison and superstition. It was viewed as a potential threat, a beautiful danger that might, through some cruel twist of nature, harbor the same deadly secrets as its more infamous relatives. This identity crisis of the tomato, a harmless fruit trapped within a notorious family tree, would dictate its fate in Europe for centuries, ensuring its prolonged stay in the garden as a mere ornamental, forever under the suspicious gaze of fearful humanity. Its botanical truth, that it was a nightshade, was too potent a truth to overcome quickly, too deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness. The shadow of the nightshade family proved to be a long and persistent one, enveloping the vibrant potential of the tomato in a veil of distrust and fear. And so, this vibrant stranger, having voyaged across an ocean vast and unforgiving, found itself not in the warmth of a welcoming hearth, but shrouded in the unsettling shadows of European suspicion. It was a peculiar kind of fear, born not of direct harm but of association, of whispered tales and ancient superstitions. The very name it acquired in this new world spoke volumes of the dread it inspired. For in Poma Amarist, some called it apple of love with a hint of dark, intoxicating allure. But a far more ominous epithet often clung to its leaves and fruit. A chilling whisper passed from gardener to noble, from peasant to scholar. It was dubbed the wolf peach. Picture the scene in the sun, drenched yet wary, gardens of 16th century Europe. The plant, with its lush green foliage and clusters of ripening fruit, would certainly catch the eye. Its skin, a brilliant scarlet or a rich golden hue, held a captivating luster, a promise of something sweet and succulent. Yet, beneath this outward beauty lurked a perceived menace. The name wolf peach itself conjured images of the wild, the untamed, the predatory. A wolf, a creature of the forest's depths, cunning and dangerous, its hunger insatiable. And to associate such a beast with the innocent, sweet promise of a peach, a symbol of domestic abundance and gentle pleasure, was to infuse it with a profoundly unsettling paradox. This was no ordinary fruit, it was a wolf in disguise, a beautiful deception. The fear wasn't entirely unfounded, at least not in the minds of the people who first encountered it. This seemingly innocent plant bore a striking resemblance to some of Europe's most notorious and truly deadly flora. Its relatives included the infamous mandrake, whose roots were said to shriek when pulled from the earth, and whose potent psychoactive properties were legendary. Then there was deadly nightshade, or belladonna, a plant whose alluring dark berries held the power to bring about a swift, terrifying end. Both belong to the same botanical family, the Solanaceae, or nightshades, a lineage steeped in folklore, poison, and powerful medicine. The tomato, with its similar leaf structure, its branching habit, its delicate flowers preceding those tantalizing fruits, was simply guilty by association. It wore the family resemblance, and in an age before precise botanical understanding and widespread scientific methodology, visual similarity was often enough to condemn. So, the wolf peach stood apart, a pariah in the plant kingdom. Its vivid colors, rather than inviting, became a warning. A bright, almost unnaturally perfect red or yellow. It seemed to glow with an inner fire, a dangerous charm. People would approach its vines with a hesitant curiosity, their eyes wide, their hands clasped behind their backs. They might lean in, just close enough to observe the plump globes hanging heavy on the vine, but never to touch, never to pluck. A child's innocent reach would be met with a sharp, stern rebuke, a hand quickly pulled away lest the poison seep through the skin. The plant existed in a strange limbo, too beautiful to ignore, too terrifying to embrace. Legends began to circulate, whispering through the market squares and flickering by candlelight in humble cottages. Tales of its supposed ability to induce madness, to provoke hallucinations, or to simply bring about a slow, agonizing death. It was believed to be a fruit of the underworld, perhaps used by witches in their dark concoctions, or cultivated by those who wished ill upon their neighbors. The very essence of the tomato became entwined with the shadow of malevolence. It wasn't just high toxic, and it was tefit. Its juice, it was rumored, could curdle the blood, and its seeds, if ingested, would sprout monstrous growth within the belly. Exaggerations, yes, but exaggerations born of a very real, very palpable fear of the unknown, magnified by the plant's uncanny resemblance to its lethal cousins. The garden, usually a place of gentle cultivation and wholesome growth, held within its orderly rows this one vibrant anomaly, a silent, unsettling testament to the power of superstition. Its beauty was not a virtue, but a veil. Its quiet existence, a patient, unseen threat. And so, the wolf peach remained, a magnificent ornament, a source of fearful fascination, but never, ever a food, not yet. This apprehension, this deep-seated fear of the wolf peach, was further cemented by a peculiar and unfortunate confluence of circumstances, one that had nothing to do with the plant's inherent toxicity, but everything to do with the societal practices of the time. In the grand dining halls and opulent estates of Europe's wealthy and aristocratic classes, where new and exotic plants like the tomato first made their appearance, the presentation of food was an art form, a display of status and refinement. And central to this display were the vessels upon which these delicacies were served, the plates, the goblets, the cutlery. Many of these treasured dining implements, particularly among the very elite, were crafted from a material that, unbeknownst to its users, harbored a silent, insidious danger: lead. Imagine a lavish banquet table, stretching long and polished beneath the flickering glow of candelabras. Silver might gleam, and fine linens might drape elegantly, but beneath the artistry of a roasted pheasant or a rich, spiced stew lay the dull, heavy luster of a pewter plate. Pewter, a popular alloy for dining ware, was predominantly composed of lead mixed with tin, copper, or antimony. It was durable, malleable, and possessed a certain weighty elegance, making it a favored choice for those who could afford to differentiate themselves from the common earthenware of the peasantry. The very weight of the plate in one's hand spoke of its quality, its value, its esteemed place at a noble table. When the vibrant, newly introduced wolf peach was, on rare occasion, dared to be presented at these tables, perhaps as a curiosity, a garnish for its striking color, or a small, tentative offering by an adventurous chef, a silent, invisible chemical reaction began to unfold. The tomato, with its bright, juicy pulp, is naturally quite acidic. It contains a good amount of citric and malic acid, the very compounds that give it its characteristic tangy flavor. When this acidic fruit, perhaps sliced thin or lightly cooked, came into prolonged contact with the lead surfaces of these noble plates, bowls, or even the handles of eating utensils, a subtle yet potent transformation occurred. The acids in the tomato would slowly, imperceptibly, begin to leach minute particles of lead from the pewter. This wasn't a violent, bubbling reaction, but a patient, persistent erosion, a chemical dance performed in silence on the surface of a seemingly harmless plate. These tiny lead particles, dissolved into the acidic juices of the tomato, would then be ingested by the diner. And here lay the true tragedy. Lead, even in very small quantities, is a potent neurotoxin. Its effects are cumulative, gradually building up in the body over time. The symptoms of chronic lead poisoning are insidious and varied, often mimicking other common ailments, making diagnosis difficult in an era without advanced medical science. Those who consumed food from lead-tainted vessels might experience debilitating fatigue, persistent headaches, abdominal pain, a loss of appetite, and a general malaise that slowly eroded their vitality. Over time, more severe symptoms could manifest: anemia, kidney damage, cognitive decline, even madness. The slow, creeping sickness was a mystery. But in the absence of scientific understanding of heavy metal toxicity, the blame was invariably, and quite logically, cast upon the most exotic, the most visually striking, and the most unfamiliar element on the plate, a wolf peach itself. It was the newcomer, the stranger, the plant already branded with the ominous moniker and the suspicion of its botanical lineage. "Ah," whispered the physicians and the concerned family members, observing the noble's failing health. "It must be the strange red fruit. We always knew it was a poison." Its very brilliance was a warning. The acidic taste, now subtly enhanced by the metallic tang of lead, only served to reinforce the belief in its inherent malevolence. It tasted wrong, it felt wrong, and now it felt wrong, and now it proved it to be deadly. The symptoms of lead poisoning became inextricably linked to the consumption of tomatoes, cementing the plant's reputation as a lethal killer. The unfortunate truth that the very instruments of luxury were the true culprits remained obscured for centuries, hidden beneath the shiny veneer of noble dining. The tomato, the silent accursed, bore the brunt of this tragic misunderstanding, its potential for nourishment overshadowed by a poison it inadvertently helped to deliver, yet did not itself possess. This was a cruel twist of fate, an invisible hand guiding fear and prejudice, condemning a truly innocent fruit to a long, solitary wait. And so, this vibrant, misunderstood immigrant plant found itself relegated to the sidelines of European life, particularly in the more cautious northern regions. Its reputation as the wolf peach, coupled with the tragic incidents of lead poisoning misattributed to its nature, meant that for centuries, the tomato was viewed with a peculiar mix of admiration and apprehension. It was beautiful, undeniably so, but its beauty was seen as superficial, even dangerous, a siren call luring one towards an unknown peril. Thus, in many parts of Italy and France, particularly among the aristocracy and in botanical circles, the tomato found its purpose not on the dinner plate, but in the meticulously manicured ornamental gardens. Picture these European gardens of the 17th and 18th centuries, sprawling green canvases, punctuated by bursts of cultivated color. Here, amidst fragrant rose bushes, stately lavender hedges, and exotic specimens brought from distant lands, the tomato vines would twine and climb, their rich green foliage providing a striking contrast to the vibrant fruits. They were grown for their aesthetic appeal, their ability to add a dramatic splash of red or gold to the verdant tapestry of the landscape. They were living ornaments, botanical curiosities admired from a safe, respectful distance. The plant in this context was a silent, uncomplaining observer. It would grow with its natural vigor, drawing sustenance from the earth and light from the sun, oblivious to the human drama of suspicion unfolding around it. Its roots would anchor deep, its stems would stretch towards the sky, and its delicate yellow flowers would unfurl, each promising a small, round fruit. And then, as the days lengthened and the sun warmed the soil, those tiny green spheres would gradually swell and ripen, transforming through shades of pale yellow and orange until they reached their full, magnificent hue, a brilliant, arresting red, or a sunny, cheerful yellow. Imagine a quiet afternoon in such a garden. The gentle hum of bees flitting between blossoms, the soft rustle of leaves in a light breeze. Sunlight filters through the branches of ancient trees, dappling the ground in shifting patterns of light and shadow. And there, against a stone wall or climbing an intricate trellis, are the tomato vines, heavy with their colorful bounty. Each fruit hangs like a polished jewel catching the light, reflecting the warmth of the summer day. They are perfect spheres, some plump and round, others elongated or slightly ridged, but all possessing an undeniable visual charm. Gardeners, perhaps, would tend to them with a certain detached reverence, pruning away dead leaves, tying back errant stems, all the while knowing that these beautiful fruits were not destined for the kitchen, but for the eye alone. For 200 long years, this was the tomato's quiet existence in much of Europe. It was appreciated, not for its taste or its nutritional value, but purely for its ornamental qualities. It was a decorative accent, a botanical conversation piece, perhaps a symbol of the exotic lands from which it hailed. It stood as a testament to nature's artistry, its vibrant colors a silent symphony against the green backdrop of the garden. Children might be warned not to pluck them, but adults would gaze upon them with a sense of wonder, admiring their form and color without ever considering them a source of sustenance. The plant waited. It waited through generations of gardeners who tended its vines without ever tasting its fruit. It waited through countless seasons, patiently ripening, silently offering its bounty to a world that was still too afraid to truly accept it. This long period of being a mere decoration speaks volumes of human caution, of the power of established beliefs, and the slow, arduous path of culinary innovation. The tomato was beautiful, yes, but beauty without utility, especially when coupled with historical fear, was not enough to earn it a place at the table. It hung in those sunlit gardens, a bright splash of color, a silent witness to the changing seasons, a patient embodiment of potential unrealized. It was a period of profound stillness for the tomato, a long, quiet pause in its journey from wild plant to global culinary king. The wind would whisper through its leaves, the sun would warm its skin, and the rain would nourish its roots, all while human hands admired its form, but kept their distance from its taste. This enduring ornamental phase was a testament to the depth of the fear it had inspired, and the remarkable patience of a plant that, despite its vibrant presence, seemed content to simply wait, silently perfecting its hues under the European sun. The soft, warm light of the Mediterranean sun began its patient work. Not in the grand botanical gardens of the north, but in the humble, sun-drenched landscapes of southern Italy. Far from the wary eyes of scholars and the rigid traditions of royal courts, a subtle shift was taking place. Down in the dusty, fertile lands surrounding Naples, where the volcanic soil whispered of ancient powers and the sea breeze carried the scent of salt and possibility, the wolf peach was about to find its first quiet champions. Here, life was often hard, bound by the rhythms of the earth and the capricious moods of the weather. But perhaps because of this, there was also a practicality, a pragmatic hunger that sometimes overshadowed caution. Imagine, if you will, the bustling, sun-baked streets of a small Neapolitan village in the late 17th century, or perhaps the early 18th. The air is thick with the scent of olive oil, drying laundry, and the distant, briny promise of the sea. The homes are simple, often built from rough stone or packed earth, their windows shuttered against the fierce midday sun, yet open to the evening's gentle breezes. Families are large and mouths are many. Food is not merely sustenance. It is a daily struggle, a shared comfort, the cornerstone of life itself. And here, in these very homes nestled amongst the familiar basil and oregano, the daring inclusion of the foreign fruit would begin. The peasants and common folk of southern Italy were, in many ways, less burdened by the scientific classifications and aristocratic fears that gripped their northern counterparts. They did not pore over ancient texts describing the lineage of poisonous plants. They simply looked for food, for sustenance, for something to fill hungry bellies. And there, growing abundantly in the fields, along sun-baked walls, or even wild by the roadside, were these vibrant, colorful fruits. They were robust, resilient, bursting forth with an undeniable vitality, seemingly undaunted by the harsh sun or the occasional drought. They ripened in shades of yellow, then orange, and finally, a deep, inviting red that seemed a pulse with the very warmth of the sun itself. Perhaps it was the children, always the first to taste and touch without prejudice, who made the initial hesitant approaches. A small hand, dirt, smudged and curious, reaching out to pluck a bright yellow orb from a tangled vine. A tentative bite, a burst of tartness, perhaps a surprised grimace, but no immediate ill effect. Or perhaps it was a daring grandmother, her hands gnarled by years of toil, her spirit unyielding, who looked at the abundance of these bright orbs and saw not danger, but potential. A whisper of a memory perhaps of similar fruits from ancient times, now lost to the ages. Her eyes, clouded with experience, held a glint of practical resolve. She would have observed the plant, how it clung to life, how its fruits held firm, unlike the berries that it quickly spoiled. She would have noticed that the local birds and insects seemed to leave it alone, which might have initially reinforced the fear of its toxicity. Yet she also knew that some of nature's best gifts were often overlooked. The fields were yielding less, the winters were long, and the promise of a new food source, however suspect, was a powerful motivator. Necessity, as it so often does, became the quiet midwife of innovation. The first attempts would have been cautious, experimental, born of quiet desperation and a slow burning curiosity. Not a grand public declaration, but a series of small private acts of defiance against an unproven superstition. A single fruit, brought into a dimly lit kitchen, handled with a mixture of reverence and apprehension. Its skin smooth and cool to the touch, its weight surprisingly substantial in the palm. What to do with it? How to prepare it? The fear of the wolf peach lingered, a phantom presence in the corners of the mind, a shadow cast by generations of learned distrust. Yet, the hunger and the visual allure of the fruit was slowly beginning to chip away at that fear. The story goes that it was the Neapolitans who truly began to look at the tomato not as a poisonous curiosity, but as an ingredient waiting to be understood. Their tables were not graced with elaborate porcelain. Their diets were not dictated by a fear of lead poisoning from polished pewter. They ate from simple wooden bowls, used humble earthenware, or perhaps even just a crust of bread to scoop up their meals. This lack of contact with leaded utensils inadvertently protected them from the very real, albeit misattributed, danger that had plagued the European aristocracy. Their stomachs were accustomed to a wider, rougher variety of sustenance, and their palates were perhaps more attuned to the raw, earthy flavors of the land. So, in the humble kitchens of Naples, a new chapter for the tomato slowly began to unfold. It was not a sudden burst of acceptance, but a gradual, cautious embrace, one quiet home at a time. The whispers of wolf peach still hung in the air, but they were slowly, imperceptibly, being drowned out by the rumbling of empty stomachs and the growing fascination with the bright, insistent color that these fruits brought to the drab routines of daily life. The sun, impartial and generous, continued to pour its warmth onto the vines, unaware of the silent revolution it was nurturing, a revolution that would change the very face of cuisine, one hesitant bite at a time. The real turning point, the gentle pivot away from centuries of fear and suspicion, came as many culinary revelations do, with fire heat. The simple act of cooking. It was a profound realization, a quiet epiphany born of everyday kitchen labor. Imagine a small, soot-stained pot hanging low over a flickering hearth in a Neapolitan home. The fire beneath it crackles and sighs, casting dancing shadows on the rough, hewn walls. The air is thick with the warm, comforting scent of wood smoke and the faint, earthy aroma of whatever humble ingredients are simmering within. Into this pot, after much deliberation and perhaps a deep fortifying breath, went the first few daring tomatoes. Not raw, not whole, but perhaps gently crushed, their smooth skin broken, their juicy pulp exposed. A mother, her face etched with a lifetime of sun and worry, would have been the one to introduce them. Her hands, calloused and quick, would have plunged into a wooden bowl, selecting the ripest, the most promising of the yellow or red globes. The first sensation as her fingers broke through the skin would have been the immediate rush of its specific, green earthy scent, a scent that clung to the vine itself, a slightly sharp, almost feral aroma. She might have chopped them roughly with a well-worn knife, the wet thud of the blade against a wooden board echoing softly in the quiet room. The seeds, small and pearly, would have spilled out, suspended in the clear, viscous juice. Then, with a hesitant, almost reverent gesture, she would have dropped the pieces into the simmering contents of the pot. Perhaps a little olive oil pressed from the local groves would have already been warming, releasing its own ancient, peppery fragrance. A clove or two of garlic, crushed with the flat of a knife, might have been added, its pungent aroma beginning to mellow and sweeten in the heat. As the tomatoes began to warm, something magical started to happen. The raw, sometimes acrid notes that had contributed to their poisonous reputation began to soften, to recede. The vibrant, almost aggressive acidity mellowed, transforming into a rich, deep sweetness. The firm flesh, once so robust, slowly yielded to the insistent heat, dissolving into a smooth, luxuriant pulp. The color, that startling red or sunny yellow, deepened, intensifying into a truly breathtaking hue, swirling and bubbling gently within the pot. The sounds, too, were part of this transformation. A gentle hiss as the juice met the hot oil, followed by the soft, rhythmic gurgle of the simmering sauce. The occasional pop and splutter, like tiny, contained explosions of flavor. The steam, rising in thin, ethereal tendrils, carried the evolving aroma upwards, filling the small kitchen with a scent that was entirely new, yet incredibly inviting. It was no longer the sharp green scent of the raw fruit, nor the ambiguous odor of something potentially dangerous. It was something warm, sweet, tangy, and profoundly comforting. This simmering, this patient alchemy over the fire was not merely about cooking. It was about conversion. The heat, it turned out, was not just a means to soften the fruit, but a gentle purifier, an alchemist's tool. It broke down the compounds that caused the raw bitterness, unlocking the hidden sugars and concentrating the deep, earthy flavors. What emerged from the pot was no longer the feared wolf peach, but something entirely different, a thick, fragrant, intensely flavorful sauce. The moment of tasting would have been fraught with a quiet tension. A small wooden spoon lifted cautiously from the pot, a droplet of the steaming liquid placed gently on the tip of the tongue. The first touch, warm, silky. The first taste, an explosion of sweetness and tang, perfectly balanced, utterly delicious. A surprised widening of the eyes, a slow, relieved exhale. There was no burning, no immediate sickness, no sudden collapse, just a profound, delicious satisfaction. The fears, centuries old, woven into the fabric of European culture, began to unravel with that single revolutionary taste. Fire, the oldest tool of civilization, had not only transformed the fruit, but had also begun to dispel the ancient shadows of fear and ignorance that surrounded it. It was the first true act of culinary rehabilitation, a quiet, almost domestic miracle unfolding in the heart of Naples. With the revelation that cooking not only rendered the tomato safe but transformed it into something exquisitely delicious, a quiet, irresistible tide began to turn in the culinary landscape of southern Italy. This was no dramatic uprising, no grand announcement in the town square. Instead, it was a slow, gentle infiltration, like the pervasive scent of garlic and oregano that clings to the walls of a beloved kitchen. The tomato, once an outcast, a beautiful but dangerous stranger, began its patient journey into the very heart of Neapolitan daily life. One plate, one meal, one family at a time. Imagine the humble kitchens of Naples, not the grand, ornate spaces of northern palaces, but small, often dark rooms, filled with the warmth of a constantly tended hearth. Here, the air was thick with the stories of generations, the sounds of life, and the promise of simple, nourishing food. Pasta, in its myriad forms, 50. The long, delicate strands of spaghetti, the broad, comforting ribbons of tagliatelle, the small, intricate shapes of orecchiette, was already the undisputed king of the Neapolitan table. It was the foundation, the canvas upon which culinary artistry, however modest, was expressed. And now, this canvas found its most vibrant, most beloved color. The red sauce born from the simmering pots began to appear with increasing frequency. It was spooned generously over freshly boiled pasta, its rich color a stark, beautiful contrast to the pale, undulating strands. The first time a child saw the vibrant red mingling with their familiar noodles, there might have been a moment of curiosity, perhaps even a slight hesitation, before the irresistible aroma drew them in. And with the first bite, a new taste memory was forged, a new comfort established. This wasn't just food, it was an experience, a quiet celebration of flavor. The integration was organic, seamless, driven by taste and practicality. The tomato was abundant. It grew easily in the fertile Neapolitan soil, soaking up the relentless sun, becoming a readily available ingredient. Its tart sweetness complemented the starchy neutrality of pasta perfectly, elevating it from a simple carbohydrate to a dish of profound satisfaction. It offered a depth of flavor that had been missing, a vibrant zest that awakened the palate. The simple pasta al pomodoro, or pasta with tomato sauce, became a staple, a go-to meal for families, a dish that was both comforting and inexpensive, satisfying and utterly delicious. You might see a nana, her face lined with the wisdom of years, standing at her wooden table, her hands moving with practiced ease. She's not consulting a recipe book. The knowledge is in her fingers, in her senses. She crushes ripe tomatoes, their skins splitting with a soft pop, releasing their juicy, vibrant pulp. The rich, earthy smell of the raw fruit, and now familiar and no longer feared, fills the air. She might saute some garlic in olive oil, its aroma sharp and inviting before adding the crushed tomatoes. The gentle hiss and sizzle as the liquid hits the hot oil is a familiar symphony, the beginning of another day's sustenance. The sauce would simmer slowly, sometimes for hours, reducing, concentrating, deepening in flavor and color. The bubbling sound, a quiet, rhythmic plop, would be the soundtrack to the afternoon. A few fresh basil leaves, torn gently, would be tossed in at the end, their sweet, peppery fragrance mingling with the rich tomato. The finished sauce, thick and velvety, would glow with an almost incandescent red, a testament to the sun's power and fire's gentle transformation. This slow permeation meant that children grew up with the taste and sight of tomato sauce as an integral part of their culinary heritage, completely unaware of the centuries of fear and suspicion that had preceded it. For them, it was simply food, undeniably good food. The Panes controversies were mere echoes, forgotten whispers. The tomato had found its home, not in the scientific treatises or royal decrees, but in the everyday pots and pans of ordinary people. It became intertwined with the very fabric of Neapolitan life. The vibrant red began to paint the plates not just of pasta, but also of stews, fish dishes, and rustic breads. It added depth to minestrone, brightness to grilled vegetables, and a tantalizing aroma to simmering meat sauces. The visual impact alone was transformative. Where once meals were often earthy browns and muted greens, now a splash of brilliant, life-affirming red appeared, a beacon of flavor and freshness. The sounds of a Neapolitan household, once dominated by the clatter of spoons against earthenware and the murmur of conversation, now also included the gentle sizzle of tomatoes in a pan, the soft bubbling of a slowly cooking sauce. The air, always redolent with the scents of a busy kitchen, gained a new, sweet, tangy layer, a signature aroma that would forever be associated with comfort and home. This was not a revolution that happened overnight. It was a slow, persistent, and utterly delicious conquest, one spoonful at a time, solidifying the tomato's place as an indispensable beloved cornerstone of Neapolitan, and eventually Italian cuisine. Its quiet triumph was written not in history books, but in the indelible stains of red on countless wooden spoons, and in the satisfied smiles around countless tables. The quiet revolution, however, found its most vibrant expression, its very soul, in the sun-drenched landscapes of Italy. Here, the timid curiosity that had begun with the poor and the daring, slowly, almost imperceptibly, blossomed into a love affair. The tomato, once merely a botanical oddity, an object of fear and superstition, became the very heart of a culinary identity. It wasn't a sudden, grand declaration, but a patient unfolding, like the ripening of the fruit itself. Imagine the humble kitchens of Naples, where the simple pasta often made with just flour and water yearned for something more. And then, a splash of red, a bubbling pot of crushed, simmered tomatoes, transformed from a raw, acidic fruit into a luscious, sweet, and deeply savory elixir. The deep, resonant hue, the vibrant carmine, began to stain not just the pasta, but the very fabric of Neapolitan life. This color, a rich, earthy red, carried within it the warmth of the Mediterranean sun, the volcanic richness of the soil, and the enduring spirit of a people who knew how to wring joy from the simplest ingredients. It was a color that promised comfort, that hinted at robust flavors, and that, crucially, dispelled the lingering shadows of doubt. This wasn't merely about taste. It was about the reclamation of an ingredient, a defiant embrace of a plant once labeled dangerous. The visual transformation was profound. Plates that had been muted, filled with pale grains and greens, suddenly burst forth with a life-affirming radiance. The red of the tomato sauce, coating strands of spaghetti or swirling around gnocchi, was an announcement, a celebration. It was a visual feast even before the first bite, a promise of the rich umami-laden depths that awaited. And then another layer was added, almost as if nature herself was composing a masterpiece. The brilliant, verdant green of fresh basil, its leaves holding the sharp, sweet perfume of summer gardens, was sprinkled generously. This wasn't just a garnish, it was a counterpoint, a high note to the tomato's deep base. The subtle pepperiness, the anise-like undertones of the basil, cut through the sweetness of the tomato, adding complexity, brightness, and an aromatic lift. The visual dance of red and green, already captivating, found its perfect partner in the creamy, pristine white of mozzarella. Imagine the gentle tearing of this fresh cheese, its milky elasticity, placed atop the simmering tomato and basil. The pure white, a symbol of innocence and purity, grounded the vibrant red and green, offering a cool, delicate contrast, a soothing balm to the palate. This triad of colors, the passionate red of the tomato, the vibrant green of the basil, and the milky white of the mozzarella, was not a deliberate, planned creation. It emerged organically from the confluence of available ingredients, culinary ingenuity, and the sheer desire for delicious food. Yet, it became something far more profound. It became, without a single word needing to be uttered, the unspoken, undeniable emblem of Italian cuisine. It was the flag unfurled on every dinner table, the quiet declaration of a culinary heritage that was both ancient and perpetually fresh. Each ingredient, simple on its own, found its true voice, its ultimate purpose in harmony with the others. The sweetness of the tomato, the peppery freshness of the basil, the creamy tang of the mozzarella, a symphony of flavors and textures elevated by their visual poetry. These colors, intertwined, spoke volumes. They whispered of sun-drenched fields, of gentle breezes carrying the scent of herbs, of bustling family gatherings where food was not just sustenance but a language of love. The red conveyed vitality, the green freshness, the white purity. Together, they presented a tableau of perfect balance, a culinary haiku that captured the essence of a nation's soul. It was in these unassuming kitchens, in the hands of ordinary people, that the tomato finally shed its centuries of ill repute, transforming from a feared wolf peach into a cherished golden apple, a core ingredient that would define an entire gastronomic tradition. It stood as a testament to patience, to the slow wisdom of the palate, and to the power of a single humble fruit to inspire generations of cooks and eaters. The transformation was complete. The tomato had not just been accepted, it had become essential, irreplaceable, the vibrant heart beating at the center of one of the world's most beloved cuisines. As this slow, gentle culinary revolution took hold in the south of Italy, the idea of the tomato as food began its hesitant, even more protracted journey northward across Europe. The warm embrace it found in Neapolitan kitchens was not replicated with the same immediate enthusiasm in the cooler climes of France and England. Here, the lingering shadows of suspicion, the deeply ingrained cultural prejudices against the wolf peach, proved more resistant to the sunny charm of its taste. It was less a confident march and more a cautious tiptoe, a tentative exploration of an ingredient still viewed with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. In France, the gastronomic heartland of precision and classical technique, the tomato was granted entry, but only after rigorous scrutiny and with a guarded welcome. It did not immediately leap into the grand sauces or become the star of elaborate dishes. Instead, it was introduced with a certain reticence, almost as a guest who had to prove its worth over many years. Chefs, renowned for their mastery of complex flavors and their adherence to established culinary doctrines, approached the tomato not as a foundational element, but often as an accent, a subtle whisper rather than a bold declaration. Imagine a French cook, perhaps in the bustling kitchens of a Parisian chateau, carefully slicing a ripe red tomato. They wouldn't be thinking of a thick, robust sauce, but perhaps a delicate concasse, a finely diced preparation used sparingly. It might be added to a stew, not as the dominant flavor, but to provide a hint of color, a faint blush of acidity that brightened other ingredients without overpowering them. It was a seasoning, a garnish, a delicate touch of visual appeal. The French palate, accustomed to rich creams, savory stocks, and a nuanced balance of herbs, viewed the tomato's potent acidity with a measure of caution. It was often tamed, cooked down for extended periods to mellow its sharpness, or paired with ingredients that could balance its vivacity. Its presence in French cuisine was often understated, a subtle enhancement rather than a central pillar. You might find it as a vibrant counterpoint in a provençal dish, where the warmth of the sun had already softened its impact, or as a decorative element, a beautiful burst of red on an otherwise earth-toned plate. It was appreciated for its visual allure, its undeniable beauty, long before its full flavor potential was unlocked. the term pomme d'amour or love apple, while romantic still carried a hint of its ornamental past, a suggestion that it was more for admiring than for devouring with gusto. Across the English Channel, the adoption was even slower, tinged with a peculiarly British blend of skepticism and pragmatism. For generations, the British diet had been built on hearty, often bland staples, roasted meats, boiled vegetables, simple gravies. The exotic, brightly colored tomato did not fit easily into this established culinary landscape. The fear of its poisonous nature lingered stubbornly, passed down through generations. Cookbooks from the era reveal a hesitant engagement, often recommending tomatoes for decorative purposes or suggesting they be used as a curiosity in salads rather than integrated into daily meals. Picture a British country kitchen, steam rising from boiling puddings and simmering roasts. A tomato might appear carefully sliced, perhaps as a novel accompaniment to a chop, or as a vibrant spot of color in a garden salad, almost as an afterthought. It was an acquired taste, an ingredient that slowly, almost grudgingly, earned its place. Unlike the passionate embrace in Italy, where the tomato became a daily ritual in England, it was more of an occasional guest, invited only when a touch of the unusual was desired. The British palate, often leaning towards the savory and the comforting, had to be gently coaxed into appreciating the tomato's unique blend of sweetness and acidity. Its progress was less like a roaring fire and more like a slow, persistent simmer, gradually softening the resistance until, eventually, it too found a quiet corner in the British kitchen. Yet, beyond the meticulous kitchens of Europe, across the vast Atlantic, a new nation young and eager to shed the superstitions of the old world was beginning to look at the tomato with fresh eyes. This was America, a land where practicality often trumped ancient fears and where a bold spirit of experimentation was part of the national character. It was here, in the early 19th century, that a particular story unfolded, one that became emblematic of the tomato's ultimate triumph over prejudice. It was a tale less of scientific discovery and more of a theatrical public declaration, a brave act designed to shock and to inform. The year was 1820, and the setting, the steps of the Salem, New Jersey, courthouse. The air was thick with expectation, with a nervous hum that rippled through the gathered crowd. For generations, the tomato, or love apple as it was sometimes known, had been regarded with deep suspicion in America, much as it had been in Europe. The old stories of its toxicity, its connection to the deadly nightshade family, had firmly taken root. Many believed that to consume it was to invite certain illness, if not death itself. People grew it in their gardens for its striking beauty, its vivid red fruits hanging like forbidden jewels, but few dared to taste them. Into this atmosphere of deep-seated fear stepped a man named Colonel Robert Gibbon Johnson. He was a prominent figure in the community, a gentleman farmer, known for his progressive ideas and his willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. Perhaps he was a man of science, an amateur botanist who had carefully studied the plant, or perhaps simply a pragmatic individual who had observed its harmless consumption elsewhere. Whatever his motivation, he was determined to put an end to the widespread belief that the tomato was poisonous. He saw not a wolf's peach, but a potential boon, a nutritious and flavorful addition to the American diet. The scene must have been extraordinary. Colonel Johnson stood before the assembled townsfolk, the sun glinting off the ripe, plump tomatoes he held in a basket. The fruits themselves were a spectacle, smooth, round, a deep, inviting crimson, a color that paradoxically hinted at both danger and deliciousness. The crowd murmured, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had come to witness a spectacle, perhaps even a tragedy. Many held their breath, expecting a dramatic collapse, a sudden seizure, the awful signs of a swift and agonizing death. With a flourish and a quiet confidence that belied the tension in the air, Colonel Johnson raised the first tomato to his lips. Imagine the crisp sound of the skin breaking, the rush of the juicy pulp, the earthy scent of the fruit released into the warm September air. He took a bite, then another, his expression calm, unwavering. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. A few surely clutched at their chests, anticipating the worst. But the colonel continued, deliberately, calmly, one tomato after another, until the entire basket was consumed. Each chew, each swallow, was an act of defiance, a silent dismantling of centuries of misinformation. He did not falter. He did not choke. He did not turn blue or collapse to the ground. He stood there, fully alive, perhaps even with a faint smile, a testament to the simple truth that had eluded so many for so long. The tomato was not poisonous. It was, in fact, quite edible. This public demonstration, this single, courageous act of consumption, became a pivotal moment in the American acceptance of the tomato. It was a visceral, undeniable proof, far more powerful than any scientific paper or quiet conversation. It was a performance that bypassed intellectual arguments and spoke directly to the public's fears, assuaging them with the simple sight of a man eating a fruit and remaining unharmed. From that day forward, the tide began to turn, slowly at first, but with increasing momentum. The story of Colonel Johnson's brave feast spread, initially by word of mouth, then through local newspapers. It chipped away at the deep-seated prejudices, slowly eroding the walls of fear that had surrounded the tomato for so long. It paved the way for farmers to cultivate it on a larger scale, for cooks to experiment with it without trepidation, and for the fruit to finally take its rightful place in American kitchens. The initial shock gave way to curiosity, then to cautious experimentation, and finally to widespread embrace. The American spirit of challenging the status quo, of practical empiricism, found its champion in a gentleman farmer and a basket of vibrant red fruit. The tomato, having endured centuries of suspicion, had finally found a public champion willing to risk his reputation, and indeed his life, to clear its name. The whispers of the past, the quiet journeys of seeds, and the careful cultivation of human patience led our humble tomato to a new era. An era not of garden plots and quiet corners, but of churning gears and industrious ambition. By the 19th century, the demand for this now beloved fruit was growing beyond the capabilities of individual kitchens and seasonal harvests. It was time for the tomato to enter the crucible of industry, to be transformed and preserved, ready to journey further than ever before. Imagine, if you will, the scene in a burgeoning factory in the mid-1800s. The air heavy with the sweet, tangy aroma of countless ripe tomatoes mingles with the faint scent of metal and steam. This isn't the gentle, earthy fragrance of a sun-warmed garden. No, this is the concentrated essence of 1,000 fields brought together for a singular purpose. Mountains of crimson orbs arrive, tumbling from horse-drawn wagons or, later, from early motor vehicles, piling high in immense wooden crates or flowing down gentle conveyor belts. They are a cascade of red, each one a testament to the patient labor of farmers. The first step in this grand transformation is often a bath. Not a delicate rinse, but a thorough, almost ceremonial cleansing. The tomatoes journey into vast circulating troughs of water, perhaps agitated gently by automated paddles or the simple force of flowing currents. Here, any lingering traces of soil, any tiny leaf or stem, are carefully washed away. You can almost hear the soft, rhythmic sloshing of the water, the gentle bumping of fruit against fruit, a symphony of cleansing that prepares them for their next, more dramatic stage. The water might be cool, refreshing, a final moment of quiet before the heat of processing begins. From the cleansing waters, the tomatoes might then travel along another belt, where diligent hands, often of women with their sleeves rolled up, stand at intervals. These are the sorters, the silent guardians of quality. Their eyes, sharp and practiced, scan each passing fruit. Any that are bruised, overly soft, or showing the slightest imperfection are swiftly, quietly removed. It is a delicate dance of observation and swift action, ensuring that only the finest, most vibrant specimens continue their journey. The discarded fruits might still find purpose, perhaps in animal feed or compost, their journey simply diverted, not ended. Next, the heat. The tomatoes, now pristine and perfectly selected, are ready for the core of their metamorphosis, cooking. Picture colossal kettles, often made of copper or stainless steel, gleaming faintly in the diffused light of the factory. Beneath them, fires roar or steam pipes hiss, heating the contents to a steady, controlled temperature. The tomatoes are gently fed into these cavernous vessels, slowly softening, their skins beginning to yield, their juicy flesh breaking down into a thick, pulpy mass. The sound here is a low, sustained gurgle, the gentle bubbling of a rich red liquid. It's a sound that speaks of transformation, of raw ingredients becoming something entirely new. As the tomatoes simmer, their vibrant liquid releases its trapped essence. Steam rises in soft, cloudy plumes, carrying with it the potent, concentrated perfume of cooked tomato. This is where the magic truly begins. The raw, fresh acidity begins to mellow, deepening into a rich, complex umami flavor. Spices, if desired, might be added, a pinch of salt, a whisper of basil or oregano, though often in these early days it was simply the pure, unadulterated essence of the tomato itself that was prized. The stirring might be done by automated arms, moving with a tireless hypnotic regularity, ensuring even cooking and preventing any sticking to the bottom of the immense pots. This is a rhythmic, almost meditative process, the steady churn of the machinery, the constant release of steam. Once cooked to perfection, a thick, glistening red sauce or pulp emerges. This is then often passed through sieves or pulpers, designed to remove any remaining skins or seeds, leaving behind a smooth, velvety consistency. The fine mesh of the sieves whirs gently, separating the elements of the tomato with quiet precision. What was once a collection of individual fruits now becomes a unified, rich, homogeneous substance, ready for its final enclosure. This final enclosure marks the birth of canned tomatoes and tomato sauce as we know them. The hot, steaming product flows along sterile pipes, then descends into waiting tin cans or glass jars. Imagine the precise, almost balletic movement of the filling machines, each nozzle dispensing its exact measure of molten red goodness. The cans or jars, pre-sterilized and perfectly aligned, glide beneath, one after another, in an endless rhythmic procession. A quiet click, a soft whoosh of liquid, and then the filled containers move on. Immediately after filling, they are sealed. For cans, this means crimping the metal lids on with ingenious machinery that works with lightning speed and absolute precision. For jars, it's often a vacuum sealing process, where lids are applied and then heated or treated to create an airtight environment. This sealing is perhaps the most crucial step, for it is this act that truly preserves the tomato, locking in its flavor, its vibrant color, and its nutritional value for months, even years. The sound of the sealing machine might be a series of soft, rapid clacks or a gentle whir, signaling the completion of a delicate, vital task. Following sealing, the cans or jars are often subjected to a final sterilization process, usually in massive pressure cookers or retorts. Here, they are heated to temperatures that eliminate any lingering microorganisms, ensuring absolute food safety and extending their shelf life even further. This is a period of quiet waiting as the containers sit in their heated chambers, undergoing their final purification. Then they emerge, still warm, perhaps a little damp from condensation, ready for labeling. The labeling process is another hypnotic ballet. Rolls of paper labels, printed with cheerful reds and greens, or perhaps more somber informational typography in the early days, feed into machines that expertly wrap and adhere them to each container. A quick sweep, a gentle press, and suddenly the anonymous metal or glass becomes a branded product, ready for market. The labels are often a burst of color, promising the sweetness and versatility contained within. Finally, the finished products are packed into wooden crates or cardboard boxes, stacked high and prepared for distribution. They will travel on trains, ships, and wagons, reaching distant cities, remote villages, and kitchens across continents. This industrial process, with its rhythmic hums, gentle clatters, and constant flow of vibrant red, transformed the tomato from a seasonal delight into a year-round staple. It democratized its flavor, making it accessible to all, no longer confined to the gardens of the wealthy or the brief abundance of summer. It was a testament to human ingenuity, finding a way to harness the ephemeral beauty of a fruit and preserve it, allowing its quiet revolution to spread worldwide, one canned good at a time. The factory, once a site of suspicion and novelty, became a symbol of progress, a place where the sun-kissed fruit could embark on its longest journeys yet. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk yet, even with the triumph of industrialization, the journey of the tomato was far from over. Its inherent wildness, its original form, was still a canvas awaiting the touch of human imagination and scientific endeavor. The shift from a mere curiosity to a global commodity spurred a new kind of dedication, one focused on perfecting the fruit itself. This was the quiet, patient work of horticulture, a story woven not with the clatter of machinery, but with the gentle turning of soil and the careful selection of seeds. Imagine a tranquil field, bathed in the soft morning light. Here, not just any tomatoes grow, but rows upon rows of carefully cultivated plants, each one a descendant of countless generations of selective breeding. This is where the scientists and the farmers, often working in quiet collaboration, embarked on their meticulous quest. Their goal was simple, yet profound: to refine the tomato, to make it not just edible, but truly exceptional. One of the primary focuses was size. The wild ancestors of the tomato were often small, little more than berries. But as humanity's appetite grew, so too did the desire for a more substantial fruit. So, imagine the patient hand of a gardener, carefully observing a particular plant that yields slightly larger fruit. That plant's seeds would be saved, nurtured, and planted again, year after year, slowly, incrementally, over decades and even centuries. The tomato grew. From tiny, marble-sized spheres, it expanded into the palm-sized, weighty orbs we know today. Each generation, a small step forward, a gradual increase in girth and substance, a testament to the power of consistent, thoughtful selection. Alongside size, shape became another important consideration. The wild tomato could be irregular, lumpy, or elongated, but for ease of slicing, for aesthetic appeal on a plate, and for efficiency in canning, a more uniform, round shape was desired. Picture the gentle curve of a perfectly ripe tomato, its symmetry a subtle achievement of horticultural art. The effort to achieve this involved countless hours of observation, of comparing one fruit to another, of identifying those plants that consistently produced the most pleasingly spherical forms. This wasn't about imposing an artificial ideal, but about enhancing the tomato's natural grace, making it more amenable to its role in the human diet. Then there was color. The earliest domesticated tomatoes were often yellow or green. While beautiful in their own right, the deep, fiery red became synonymous with ripeness, flavor, and the very essence of the tomato. Scientists delved into the genetics of pigmentation, understanding the compounds like lycopene that give the tomato its iconic hue. Farmers, too, through careful observation, selected for plants that yielded fruits with the most intense, unblemished crimson. Imagine a field at harvest time, a sea of vibrant red, each fruit glowing with a rich, uniform color that speaks of health and vitality. It was a conscious effort to enhance the tomato's visual appeal, to make it an irresistible beacon on a plate. And of course, sweetness. The wild tomato often carried a sharp, almost biting acidity. While this had its charm, a balance of sweetness and tang was desired to make it truly palatable and versatile. Through careful tasting and cross-breeding, varieties were developed that offered a more rounded flavor profile. Imagine biting into a freshly picked tomato and experiencing that perfect equilibrium. A burst of sweetness followed by a refreshing hint of acidity, a complex dance of flavors on the tongue. This was achieved by patiently identifying plants that produced sweeter fruits, and then carefully crossing them, nurturing their offspring, and selecting again, each cycle bringing them closer to that ideal balance. The process of modern horticulture is one of quiet dedication. It involves understanding plant genetics, carefully hand-pollinating flowers, and meticulously documenting the characteristics of each new generation. It's a slow, deliberate art where patience is the most important tool. Imagine the detailed notebooks filled with observations, the careful labeling of experimental plots, the quiet satisfaction of seeing a new, improved variety emerge after years of effort. This continuous refinement means that the tomato you hold in your hand today is a product of centuries of human partnership with nature. It is larger, rounder, redder, and sweeter than its ancient ancestors. It is a testament to the subtle power of selection, to the quiet persistence of those who understood that even a seemingly simple fruit held vast potential for improvement. It is a story of gradual evolution, guided by human hands, ensuring that the tomato would not just survive, but truly thrive in its intimate relationship with us, its cultivators and admirers. The modern tomato is a cultivated masterpiece, a silent achievement born of human curiosity and a deep appreciation for the gifts of the earth. Asterisk, 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 and what a masterpiece it has become. The quiet work of the horticulturalists, the patient observation of countless generations, has not led to a single monolithic tomato, but to an astonishing explosion of diversity. Once confined to small, often yellow or green, unassuming fruits, the tomato now presents itself in a veritable kaleidoscope of shapes, sizes, and, most notably, colors. It is a testament to its genetic flexibility and to the human spirit's boundless desire for variety and beauty. Close your eyes for a moment and let your mind drift through an imaginary heirloom garden, a place where the past and present of the tomato converge in a symphony of forms. You're not just seeing red, you're seeing a whole spectrum, a silent echo of the ancient landscapes where these fruits first bloomed. First, imagine the Black Prince. Its name itself evokes a sense of regal mystery. This is not a tomato of bright, cheerful red. Instead, it offers a deep, dusky purple, almost a bruised plum color, sometimes with hints of dark green near the stem. Its skin is often thin and delicate, yielding easily to the touch. When you slice it open, you find flesh that is still dark, perhaps a brownish red, dense and rich, with a complex, smoky sweetness that speaks of old-world charm. It's not a showstopper in the conventional sense, but a quiet, profound beauty, a statement in muted tones. Next to it, a stark contrast, the lemon boy. This tomato is a burst of sunshine, a cheerful pale yellow that glows softly against the green foliage. Its skin is smooth, its form often perfectly round and substantial. Imagine holding it, feeling its smooth, cool surface, a perfect sphere of pure light. When cut, its flesh is a pale, creamy yellow, less acidic than its red counterparts, often described as having a milder, fruitier flavor, a gentle sweetness that is wonderfully refreshing in a summer salad. It is an optimistic tomato, a quiet reminder of warmth and light. Then, perhaps, you encounter the green zebra. This one plays a subtle trick on the eye. While its name suggests a vibrant, striped green, its full ripeness often reveals underlying streaks of amber or gold, contrasting with the deeper green stripes. It's a work of art, each fruit a unique painting of color and line. Its flavor is often described as bright, sharp, and zesty, with a touch of sweetness, a lively tang that makes it a favorite for those seeking a more complex palate experience. It's a tomato with personality, a quiet rebel in the world of red. Now, let your gaze fall upon the oxheart varieties. These are truly distinct. Their shape is unmistakable, a gentle, broad heart, often quite large and meaty. The color might be a deep, rosy pink or a vibrant red. Imagine cradling one in your hand, feeling its unusual, almost sculptural form. When you slice an ox heart, you find incredibly dense, meaty flesh with very few seeds and little juice. This makes it perfect for sauces, for thick slices on sandwiches, or for a rich, flavorful tomato paste. It's a generous tomato, a symbol of abundance and hearty sustenance. Consider also the range of smaller forms. The The sun-gold cherry tomato, for instance, a tiny orb of brilliant orange, gold bursting with an almost candy-like sweetness. Or the elongated, teardrop shape of a San Marzano plum tomato, renowned for its firm flesh and low seed count, making it the preferred choice for authentic Italian sauces. Each small fruit, though diminutive, carries a distinct character, a unique contribution to the vast tomato family. There are even tomatoes that shift color as they ripen, beginning as deep green and slowly transforming into shades of chocolate or mahogany, like the black crim, or those that are almost white, with just a hint of creamy yellow, offering a delicate, almost ethereal appearance. Some tomatoes are heavily ribbed, with deep indentations that give them a rustic, old-world charm. Others are perfectly smooth, almost polished. The sheer variety extends beyond the supermarket shelves, reaching into the hidden corners of seed banks and the passionate plots of heirloom gardeners. Each variety, carefully cultivated and preserved, carries its own small story, its own particular blend of sweetness, acidity, and aroma. This rich tapestry of tomato forms reminds us that even after centuries of cultivation, the tomato continues to surprise and delight, offering a boundless array of sensory experiences. It's a quiet celebration of difference, a vibrant affirmation that beauty, utility, and flavor can manifest in countless glorious ways, all from the humble origins of a small, wild fruit. Each color, each shape, a silent echo of its journey, a testament to the endless possibilities that lie within a single seed. The very air seems to hold a memory, a fragrant whisper, that is often overlooked in our appreciation of the fruit itself. We speak of the sweet tang of a ripe tomato, the rich umami of its cooked sauce, the vibrant burst of its fresh flesh. But before any of that, before the crimson globe or the golden orb, there is the scent of the vine, the subtle exhalation of the leaves, a quiet aroma that anchors the plant to its earthly origins and the warmth of the sun. Close your eyes for a moment, and perhaps you can conjure it. It is a scent of green, yes, but not a simple, innocent green. It carries with it the deep, dark loam of the garden soil, a fertile richness that speaks of microbes and minerals, of dampness after a gentle rain, and the steady, quiet work of roots reaching down, drawing sustenance from the earth's embrace. This earthiness is the foundational note, robust and grounding, a reminder that every sweet fruit springs from a profound connection to the soil. It is the scent of growth, of something vital and deeply rooted. Then, layered upon this earthiness, comes the distinct, almost peppery greenness of the leaves themselves. Imagine gently rubbing a tomato leaf between your thumb and forefinger, feeling the slightly coarse, velvety texture, the tiny, almost invisible hairs that cling to your skin. As the cells break, a more immediate, sharper verdancy is released. It is a chlorophyll, rich aroma, fresh and clean, but with an underlying complexity, a certain rawness, that is entirely different from the cultivated sweetness of the fruit. This is the wilder side of the tomato, a subtle pungency that hints at its origins, its ancient lineage. It is the scent of pure, unadulterated plant life, potent and unapologetic. There is also a curious, almost resinous quality to this fragrance, a faint, almost metallic note that can be difficult to place, a clean, almost sharp edge that cuts through the earth and the green. It is often described as slightly spicy or herbaceous or even a little bitter, but in the most pleasant, intriguing way. This is not a scent that clamors for attention, rather. It lingers, a persistent, quiet presence that becomes part of the atmosphere of a sun-drenched garden. It clings to your clothes after a morning spent tending the rose. It settles into your skin, a natural perfume that is both invigorating and profoundly peaceful. It is the signature of the tomato plant's respiration, its silent breathing, its ongoing conversation with the sun and the air. Think of it as the breath of the garden itself, a concentrated essence of summer afternoons. It can be found not just in the leaves, but in the sturdy stems, the delicate tendrils that reach out, seeking support. Even the unripe, firm green fruit emits a fainter echo of this same singular aroma. As the sun warms the plants throughout the day, this scent intensifies, becoming more pervasive, a gentle, aromatic haze that floats among the vines. When the dew settles in the evening, it becomes softer, perhaps a little more earthy, as if the garden is settling down for the night, its scents deepening and becoming more introspective. This fragrance is a contrast to the fruit's ripe sweetness. The fruit offers a promise of flavor, a culmination of growth. The leaves offer the story of that growth, the journey itself. It is the scent of potential, of unseen chemical processes, of life unfolding in myriad, microscopic ways. It reminds us that every delicious bite of a juicy tomato is supported by this intricate, aromatic architecture, by the quiet diligence of the vine. It's a primal, honest scent, connecting us directly to the soil, the sun, and the simple, profound act of cultivation. It is the olfactory memory of long, lazy summer days, of hands stained green from pruning, of the quiet satisfaction of watching something grow. And so, we allow this unique, green fragrance to gently recede, to mingle with the fading light of the day, to become a part of the quiet tapestry of scent that settles over us as we drift from the garden and into the comforting familiarity of the kitchen. Here, in the heart of our homes, the tomato has truly found its peace. No longer the feared wolf peach, no longer relegated to a purely ornamental role. It has, through centuries of quiet persistence and the simple act of being consumed, woven itself into the very fabric of our culinary lives. From a suspicious curiosity, it has blossomed into an indispensable, utterly reliable ally, a testament to the power of time and taste to overcome ancient fears. Consider its ubiquity, its sheer presence in nearly every culinary tradition across the globe. It is the cornerstone of countless sauces, forming the rich, simmering base for pasta dishes that have comforted generations. Imagine the gentle bubbling sound of a slow-cooked marinara, the steam rising, carrying with it the deep, sweet, concentrated aroma of tomatoes, mingled with garlic and basil, perhaps a hint of oregano. This is a foundational scent, a culinary anchor, a flavor profile that speaks of home and warmth. The tomato in this form is a patient giver, slowly breaking down, releasing its sugars and acids, transforming into something truly sublime, ready to embrace freshly cooked pasta, or to become the canvas for a hearty lasagna. Layer upon layer of comforting flavors. It provides that essential moisture, that nuanced tang, that rich, deep red color that promises both flavor and satisfaction. Then there is the freshness it brings to salads, a vibrant counterpoint to crisp greens, crunchy cucumbers, and sharp onions. Picture slices of ripe, firm tomato, their skin gleaming, their internal structure revealing pockets of jelly, like seeds and succulent flesh. A gentle dressing of olive oil and vinegar, perhaps a sprinkle of sea salt, and the tomato bursts forth with its bright acidic sweetness, a refreshing counterpoint to the richness of a meal. It adds not just flavor, but a crucial texture stewing, a slight resistance, then a soft yielding, and finally a juicy release that invigorates the palate. It is the color and life of the salad bowl, a simple beauty that elevates the everyday. The light catches the moisture on its surface, making it glisten, a small edible jewel. In the realm of soups, the tomato offers warmth and depth. From a clear, delicate consomme with a hint of tomato essence to a creamy, comforting bowl of roasted tomato soup. Its presence is profoundly reassuring. The subtle steam rising from a bowl of hot tomato soup on a cool evening, the gentle scent of its cooked sweetness, the smooth velvety texture as it glides over the tongue. These are small moments of culinary solace provided in large part by the humble tomato. It blends harmoniously with other vegetables, allowing its inherent sweetness to shine through, creating a balanced and deeply satisfying liquid embrace. As for stews, the tomato is a silent workhorse, contributing body, color, and a layer of complex flavor that deepens with every hour of simmering. In a robust beef stew, or a vibrant vegetable tagine, or a slow-cooked lentil concoction, the tomatoes melt down, their acidity tenderizing meats and enriching broths, their vibrant color infusing the entire dish with a visual warmth that is utterly inviting. They bind ingredients together, creating a cohesive, hearty meal that nourishes both body and soul. The way they slowly break down, becoming part of the stew's very essence, is a testament to their transformative power in long, slow cooking. And of course, for the simplest of pleasures, the sandwich. A few thin slices of ripe tomato, nestled between bread with a smear of mayonnaise and maybe a slice of cheese, elevate a mere assemblage of ingredients into something truly delicious. The moistness, the subtle tang, the slight give of the tomato against the resistance of the bread. These simple elements combine to create a perfect bite, a moment of everyday satisfaction. It is a reminder of how something so simple can bring so much joy, a quiet celebration of freshness and flavor in its most unadorned form. Beyond these classic roles, the tomato adapts with effortless grace. It forms the vibrant, tangy base for pizzas, holding aloft the molten cheese and a medley of toppings. It is roasted, its sugars caramelizing, intensifying its sweetness and creating a deeply savory depth, perfect as a side dish or stirred into a grain bowl. It is sun-dried, its flavor concentrated to an almost umami intensity, adding a chewy, robust dimension to salads and antipasti. It is juiced, providing a refreshing, slightly tangy drink rich in its distinctive flavor. It is even transformed into delicate preserves, a sweet and savory spread for toast or cheese. The sheer versatility is staggering. It works equally well raw, offering its crispness and bright acidity, or cooked, where it softens, sweetens, and develops a profound depth. It bridges cultural divides, appearing in Italian pasta sauces, Mexican salsas, Indian curries, American ketchup, and Middle Eastern stews. Its presence is so ingrained, so expected, that we often forget the long, winding journey it took to reach this esteemed position. It is the dependable constant, the familiar friend, the ingredient that rarely disappoints. Its adaptability speaks to a quiet strength, a subtle power to enhance, to harmonize, to complete. It truly is the universal solvent of the culinary world, capable of blending into almost any flavor profile, while always maintaining its own unique, recognizable character. This quiet transformation, from a feared curiosity to a beloved necessity, is one of the most remarkable stories in our human relationship with food, a culinary evolution achieved, not through grand proclamations, but through countless small, patient acts of cooking and tasting, of gradual acceptance, until its presence became so fundamental we could barely imagine a kitchen without it. And as we consider its journey, we turn our gaze to the most striking aspect of the tomato, a visual signature that has captivated artists and cooks alike: its color. The vibrant, often intense red of a ripe tomato is more than just a pigment. It is a radiant expression of life, of ripeness, of the very essence of summer captured in a perfect spherical form. It is a color that speaks without words, a visual cue that immediately evokes freshness, sweetness, and a promise of flavor. This distinctive red is largely due to a natural pigment called lycopene, a powerful antioxidant. But the scientific explanation, while fascinating, doesn't quite capture the visual poetry of it. Imagine the early morning sun just beginning to warm the garden, casting a soft golden light. A tomato, still cool from the night air, begins to reveal its true hue. It might be a deep crimson, almost burgundy, holding shadows in its curves, or a bright, fiery scarlet, catching the nascent rays and glowing from within. There are also the blushing pinks, the soft coral tones, the sunset oranges, each a variation on the theme of ripeness, each a testament to the slow, deliberate process of maturation. As the day progresses and the sun climbs higher, the light becomes sharper, more direct. Perfectly ripe tomato on the vine, bathed in this bright, unyielding light, seems to absorb it, to drink it in, and then to refract it back with an astonishing intensity. The red is not just mine, the surface. It seems to emanate from and from within, a deep, resonant hum of color. The skin, often taut and glossy, acts as a tiny lens reflecting specks of light, making the surface shimmer, almost pulsate with life. Water droplets from a morning dew or a gentle watering cling to the surface, like miniature pearls, each one magnifying the vibrant red beneath, creating a mosaic of glinting color. Observe the subtle range of this redness. A young tomato, still firm and green, holds the promise of this eventual explosion of color. As it begins to ripen, streaks of pale yellow might appear, then faint blushes of orange slowly deepening, spreading, until the green recedes entirely, replaced by the triumphant flood of red. This transformation is a slow, silent dance with time and sunlight, an almost imperceptible shift that, over days and weeks, culminates in that perfect, rich hue. It is a spectrum, from the faint rose of a nearly ripe fruit to the profound, almost maroon depth of a fully mature beefsteak tomato. This red is a celebration of the sun's energy, patiently absorbed and transformed. It's the color of vitality, of robust health, of the fullness of summer's bounty. It stands out in any setting against the deep green of its own leaves. It is a jewel in a bowl of mixed vegetables. It is a punctuation mark, a splash of cheerful warmth on a plate. It draws the eye, inviting appreciation. It is a color that speaks of warmth, of sustenance, of the simple pleasures that connect us to the earth, and its cycles. Think of the emotional resonance of this color. It's the warmth of a hearth fire, the passion of a sunset, the comforting glow of a shared meal. The tomato brings this visual richness to our tables, adding an aesthetic pleasure that complements its taste and texture. It reminds us that food is not just about sustenance, but also about beauty, about the quiet joy that comes from observing the natural world in its most abundant, giving forms. This bright, unyielding red is a testament to the tomato's journey, a final flourish of color that marks its complete acceptance and integration into our lives. It is the visual equivalent of a gentle, comforting hum, a silent, glowing presence that promises both nourishment and a touch of serene beauty. For centuries, this quiet voyager from distant shores knew nothing but the long, unwavering patience of the earth. It was a patience that spanned generations of human lives, stretching across decades like an unspooling thread of green vine, slowly reaching. The tomato, for all its vibrant potential, spent an epoch in a kind of botanical limbo, cultivated not for the promise of its internal sweetness, but for the external spectacle of its form and hue. 200 years, a mere blink in geological time, but an almost unimaginable span for a single plant to stand in the quiet shadows of human doubt. Imagine, if you will, the tomato plant in an Italian garden, perhaps in the sun-drenched region of Sicily, or the fertile plains near Naples, a land already ancient with history and sun-baked wisdom. It wasn't plucked for the evening meal, nor was it mashed into a rustic sauce. Instead, it was admired, a curious botanical specimen, its presence a testament to the age of exploration, a silent trophy from a world far away. Its roots, however, knew no such vanity. They simply drank deeply from the soil, drawing up the life-giving minerals, and anchoring the plant against the gentle, persistent Mediterranean breeze. Each season the cycle unfolded, oblivious to human skepticism. The delicate yellow flowers unfurled their petals, beckoning the tireless bees with their faint, earthy perfume, and then the tiny green spheres would emerge, hidden amongst the verdant leaves, slowly, almost imperceptibly, expanding, rounding, gaining a nascent firmness. The sun, a constant, impartial observer, poured its golden light onto these nascent fruits, urging their transformation. From a pale, almost ethereal green, they would gradually blush, a faint blush at first, like the shy dawn on a summer morning. Then, the yellow would begin to deepen, a warm, inviting gold, hinting at the sweetness held within. Still, human hands, often guided by ancient fears and whispered warnings, hesitated. The plant offered its bounty season after season without complaint, without a single plea for acceptance. It simply fruitivousor, it grew. It fruited. It dropped its seeds, ensuring the next generation would rise again to face the same quiet resistance. This was a waiting game played out on a scale beyond human comprehension. While empires rose and fell, while scientific revolutions slowly reshaped understanding, while art evolved from the Renaissance's vivid humanism to the Baroque's dramatic flourish, the tomato simply persisted. It unfurled its leaves, each one a small, intricate solar panel, absorbing the boundless energy of the sun. Its tendrils, like tiny, searching fingers, reached out, seeking support, gently coiling around whatever was near soothe a wooden stake, a neighboring plant, or even the rough stone wall of a garden. It was a testament to life's inherent will to continue to flourish, even when misunderstood. The prejudice against it was not a roaring fire of opposition, but a persistent, chilling mist of distrust. A plant with such vibrant color, such a compelling shape, yet connected by familial ties to the nightshades. Plants whose names alone conjured images of madness and death. Belladonna, mandrake, furty. These were the tomato's distant kin, and guilt by association was a powerful force in a world where superstition still held sway. So, the tomato was left to ripen, often to overripen. Its perfect redness ignored, its juicy interior unappreciated. It was a silent witness to the unfolding of human history, its own silent story unread, its true nature unseen. Its existence during those centuries was a gentle, continuous act of protest, not through loud declaration, but through sheer, unwavering presence. Every spring, new shoots emerged, reaching towards the sky. Every summer, new fruits formed, transforming from tight green buds to the full, swollen promise of ripeness. Every autumn, the vines would wither, returning their nutrients to the earth, preparing for a fresh beginning. This cycle, repeated endlessly, was a testament to an intrinsic right to exist, a quiet assertion of its own value, independent of human approval. It waited, not with bated breath, but with the steady, rhythmic pulse of life itself, for the moment when perception would shift, when a brave hand would reach out, not just to admire, but to taste. It was a lesson in unhurried persistence, a botanical masterclass in the art of simply tone being and allowing time, that great and indifferent healer, to slowly, irrevocably change everything. The silence of its waiting was a profound echo in the gardens of Europe, a testament to the unyielding force of nature's subtle revolutions. And with each passing season, each unpicked fruit, each fallen seed, the ground slowly prepared itself for the quiet moment of acceptance that was inevitably to come. The journey of the tomato, from its humble beginning as a tiny seed, nestled in the dark, warm earth, to its triumphant emergence as a plump, sun-ripened fruit, is a profound and reassuring symphony of nature's patience. It is a cycle of transformation, unfolding with an innate wisdom that predates human memory. Imagine that seed, no bigger than a fleck of pepper, a mere promise held within a fragile shell. It lies dormant, a miniature vessel of potential, waiting for the precise alignment of conditions. The soil must offer its embrace, moist and rich. The temperature must be just right, a gentle warmth like a soft whisper against its tiny casing. And then the transformation begins, a miracle of biology that happens again and again, unseen, unheard, yet utterly powerful. First, the seed begins to swell, absorbing moisture from the surrounding earth, softening its protective shell. A tiny root, a pioneering explorer, pushes downward seeking anchorage and sustenance, feeling its way through the intricate labyrinth of soil particles. This initial rootlet is delicate, almost ethereal, yet possessed of an undeniable drive, a silent commitment to life. It secures the seed, drawing up the essential elements, the foundational building blocks for the life that is about to unfold. Then, with an almost imperceptible tremor, a tiny sprout pushes upwards, a fragile green arc breaking through the surface of the soil. These are the cotyledons, the seed leaves, a pair of unassuming rounded structures that are the plant's first foray into the light. They are a declaration, a quiet assertion of existence, stretching towards the sun with an inherent, unyielding optimism. The sunlight, that generous and boundless energy source, washes over them, initiating the vital process of photosynthesis, the alchemy of turning light into life. As the days lengthen and the sun's warmth intensifies, the true leaves emerge, smaller and more intricately shaped, beginning to show the distinctive, slightly serrated form of the mature tomato plant. The stem strengthens, gaining a verdant firmness, anchoring the growing structure. The plant begins its steady ascent, a slow, deliberate reach towards the sky. Each new leaf unfolds like a tiny emerald hand, catching the sunlight, gathering energy, fueling the relentless growth. The tendrils, like delicate, inquisitive fingers, begin to emerge, sensing their surroundings, gently spiraling as if searching for something to grasp. A steady handhold in the vastness of the garden. The vine itself is a marvel of organic engineering, slowly elongating, branching, weaving a complex tapestry of green. It is a gentle upward climb, a continuous unfolding. You can almost feel its quiet effort, the steady draw of water and nutrients through its vascular system, the subtle expansion of its cells. It's a rhythmic, almost meditative dance with gravity and light, a constant seeking of balance and support. And then the flowers appear, small, humble, bright yellow blossoms, often star-shaped, clustered among the leaves. They are not flamboyant or grand, but possess an understated beauty, a quiet elegance. Each flower is a tiny, self-contained universe of reproduction, a promise of fruit. Bees, those tireless messengers of the garden, buzz gently around them, their legs dusted with golden pollen, facilitating the miraculous process of fertilization. The air around the flowering vine takes on a subtle, sweet, earthy perfume, an aroma that speaks of life and impending bounty. Once pollinated, the delicate petals of the flower fall away, and in their place a tiny, almost imperceptible green sphere begins to form. This is the nascent fruit, the very beginning of the tomato we know and love. It is small, firm, and hidden at first, a secret growing within the leafy canopy. Day by day, week by week, this tiny sphere expands, slowly, steadily absorbing the sun's energy, drawing on the plant's resources. It grows rounder, fuller, its skin tight, vibrant green, reflecting the chlorophyll within. Then the true transformation begins, the grand reveal of color. The green starts to soften, to blush. First, a faint yellow may appear, a subtle hint of what is to come, like a sunrise slowly spreading across a distant horizon. This yellow deepens, becoming more pronounced, sometimes shifting to a soft orange, a warm, inviting hue. And finally, the glorious, unmistakable red begins to bleed through, a slow, deep stain that spreads across the fruit, intensifying with each passing hour of sunlight. It is the signature of the tomato, a testament to the accumulation of lycopene, a pigment that holds both beauty and nutritional power. The fruit grows heavier, its skin becoming taut and glossy, almost shimmering in the afternoon light. It softens slightly to the touch, no longer firm and unyielding, but yielding gently, promising a juicy interior. The aroma, too, shifts and deepens, becoming richer, sweeter, a complex perfume that combines the earthy notes of the vine with the vibrant sweetness of the ripening fruit. This is the culmination of the cycle, the quiet, persistent journey from microscopic seed to magnificent fruit. It is a cycle that has repeated untold trillions of times across the ages, a silent, powerful rhythm embedded in the very fabric of nature. From the single, forgotten seed that fell into fertile soil to the towering vine heavy with ripe, gleaming fruit, each stage is a testament to life's inherent drive, its quiet determination to grow, to transform, to offer its bounty. There is a profound sense of peace in this recurring pattern, a reassuring predictability in a world of constant change. It is a cycle of rebirth and abundance, played out with such gentle insistence, such an unhurried grace, that it invites us to slow down, to observe, and to simply be present with the quiet miracle of growth. And now, as the story of the tomato drifts gently into its conclusion, let the warmth of its journey settle around you, like the soft embrace of a summer evening. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and allow your body to sink deeper into the comfort beneath you. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, a steady, soothing tide moving in and out, a quiet echo of the earth's own ancient cycles. Imagine for a moment a vibrant, glowing red of a perfectly ripe tomato, not just seeing it with your mind's eye, but truly feeling its essence. Picture the smooth, taut skin shimmering with the memory of sunlight. See the way the light catches its curve, reflecting a tiny, distorted image of the world around it. It's a color that speaks of life, of warmth, of a gentle, persistent energy. Now, bring that imagined tomato closer. Feel its delicate weight in your hand, perhaps still warm from the sun or cool from the shade of the vine. Notice the subtle give of its flesh, hinting at the juicy bounty within. And then, imagine the subtle, verdant scent that rises from its stem, a clean, slightly earthy fragrance, a breath of green that reminds you of soil and dew and the quiet hum of a summer garden. It's not just the smell of the fruit, but the very essence of the plant, its journey, its resilience. Take a moment to recall the taste, the true taste of summer, encapsulated in a single bite. The initial burst of sweet juiciness, tartness perfectly balanced against a profound and earthy sweetness. Feel it on your tongue, that bright, fresh flavor. A flavor that carries the memory of long sun-drenched days and cool, star-filled nights. It is the taste of patience, of slow growth, of nature's quiet generosity. This is the culmination of centuries of waiting, of prejudice overcome, of a simple plant finding its rightful place, not through force, but through pure, unwavering authenticity. Let this feeling of sweet, summery warmth spread through your entire being. From the tips of your toes to the crown of your head, feel a gentle relaxation begin to unfurl, like the first tender leaves of a seedling reaching for the sun. The weight of your body easing, the tension in your shoulders softening. Your eyelids growing heavier, gently settling over your eyes, embracing the darkness. The journey of the tomato, from wild vine to revered culinary gem, is a testament to the quiet revolutions that happen all around us, often unseen, unheard. It is a story of slow acceptance, of the gradual triumph of natural goodness over unfounded fear. And just as the tomato patiently waited for its moment, you too can now surrender to the patient rhythm of rest. Feel yourself drifting, gently, like a seed carried on a soft breeze, or a leaf floating down a slow-moving stream. There is nothing left to do, nowhere left to be. Only the deep, calming breath that carries you. Let the colors of the summer garden fade into the soft grays and blues of approaching slumber. Let the sweet, warm taste of the sun, ripened tomato linger on your tongue, a comforting reminder of abundance and peace. Your mind, clear and calm, is now ready to wander into the landscapes of sleep. The quiet whisper of history has guided you here, to this tranquil moment. Embrace the stillness, embrace the quiet. Allow the gentle currents of peaceful rest to carry you deeper, deeper into a profound and restorative slumber. You are safe, you are warm, you are at peace, and with the lingering taste of summer sunlight, you may now gently drift into the deepest, most tranquil sleep. Sweet dreams.